Hey, good, congrats.
Oh, thank
Do I have your first meetings and stuff?
you. Not
or-
yet. I start training on Wednesday, 3 Wednesdays, 3 hours each.
Cool.
And then-
Wow.
Yeah, no. Then the first meeting is
I know, right?
January 9th,
Yeah.
I believe. So
Okay.
they start in January. So
Very cool. That's exciting. Hello, Chair. Are you the interim today or the? Yes. Hey, we got your back. How are you, Miss
We'll be
Laura?
nice.
Need.
we'll be nice.
Good.
Those two won't be here. We need Val. How many do we need for a quorum? We've never been this low. I think there's 7. Does 7 include? Let's see. So we only need 4, and we have 4.
Right.
And how close are we? Oh, we need to get going. It's 4:03. Hey,
Ready? All right. Well, we're at the Park Board meeting on November 29th, 22, and I guess we'll start with a roll call.
James Hand, David Marquardt,
Here.
Lindsay Shonak,
Here.
Valerie Ritland, Sebastian McDougall,
Here?
Larry Seljevold, Laura Caroon. Here.
Any recognitions, presentations? No? Okay. Any amendments to the agenda? No? Okay. I guess we're looking for a motion to approve the last minutes from August 23rd.
I'll move to approve last August minutes.
By Laura, second.
Second.
Second by Lindsay. All right. Any citizens to be heard? Doesn't quite look like it.
I think we got to vote on that motion yet.
Oh, certainly. I
Yep,
guess
that's okay.
all in favor say aye.
Hi.
All opposed?
Aye.
Perfect. All right, number 6, the business. Approve Parks Procedural Handbook, 1129, submitted from last our meeting. Holly?
So basically, this item has come back to us a number of times, and there are still portions of it that we are going to remove for further consideration based on Member Seljevold's request to do a deeper dive into some of the ordinances. Basically, I'll be looking for a motion tonight to approve the handbook with exclusions, so we can get the rest of it in use. And I think the other items in there, the ordinances that Member Seljevold talks about, will take a number of months to not only research, but there's 2 readings at the City Council, and then we have to publish it in the paper to get it changed. If I could at least read off those sections, and they are in red in the document that we gave you, so people will understand that. But the sections that we're going to be removing for further consideration are park hours. In our research, it shows, and basically, Member Seljevold is recommending we remove these. If somebody here, if the vote is that you don't believe this is worthy of changing the ordinance, then you should speak up here, because it should be a majority of this member board to decide if we're going to look at changing them. But the park hours, Member Seljevold was looking at 6 a.m. Until 10 p.m. Currently, it's 10 to 10. There is a fiduciary note on changing it. Every park has to be signed as you enter what the park hours are. Therefore, anybody in that park after these hours there is, the police can come and check it out, and why are you in the park at this time of night, and so forth. The original suggestion was dusk to dawn. But that doesn't work because in the evenings, we have activities going on in the park, such as skating and so forth in the winter, and it certainly is passed on. So just looking for input on that one. It would take, like I say, the 2 readings, the fiduciary concern. I did ask Moorhead Police. They haven't had an opportunity to comment on it yet. So if you'd like further research, I guess just a nod would be fine. There's no real vote here yet. Do you want us to look at 6 to 10 instead of 10 to 10?
I'm just afraid of the cost of signage and those things. So I guess I'd like to know what that was going to cost before I would vote yes or no. But because I'm not sure if it's even really enforced anyways. If you are there at 8 in the morning, is that really a concern? So I don't know what, I'd like to know the costs associated with it before I could vote on it.
I tried to figure that out, and we're guessing that it's at $1,500.
And that's the hard cost of $800 for the signage and $700 for staff time.
Yep, that was park maintenance supervisor and myself. That was our best guesstimate. The poles are already there, but the time to go around to each of the parks.
Have there been issues in those morning hours before 10 a.m.?
No, so occasionally we do have some vagrants that we will kind of move on before it opens. Very rarely do we have gates that we close, so it's not, most of the gates are open, isn't that correct, Steve? Yeah, I think there's 1 or 2 that will close up at MB Johnson occasionally, because we have significant issues up there. River Oaks Point would be nice, but the gate is quite far behind the area, which we have had issues at River Oaks Point with people being in there. That's more of an evening than an early. But for our campers that camp in the park, you know, that these are why we do have park hours. So we haven't had any problems in the mornings.
So this would be extending the hours.
Yes.
So increased accessibility, especially at those hours, would seem real or perceived, would seem to be a good thing. I think it would be good to also get input from the police department to make sure that that's not going to cause any undue burden. But I think increased accessibility is a good thing, even though it's probably not going to change a lot of behavior in park usage.
Okay, it sounds like we should continue our research and bring it back. We will visit with police and bring it back when we look at the other items.
I would say so. You think so, Dave?
I think so.
Okay. The next item on here is alcohol. And most of the alcohol ordinances are written based on state law. And state law uses the term 3-2. The problem with that is Member Seljevold also has concerns that you can't even really buy 3-2 when you go, and that if we're giving a permit into the park for usage of beer, that it many times is not 3-2 beer. It's 5% beer, which is a regular Bud Light or 5.5 or whatever it is. So I don't know that we can change these. City Clerk Christina Rust is with us today because we have a new software program. Thank her for coming. But we will be looking into this in a lot more depth to see how to open things up. The question that's going to come back to this board is how much more do you want alcohol to be open in the parks? Do you want, Harriet Island is an example in St. Paul where they, you know, are in a park in Minnesota and they pretty much open carry, you know, and I don't know what our, if they can do it, we need to still research what our opportunity is to open that kind of thing up. As you know, it's probably pretty prevalent at Woodlawn. You know, should we have that at Woodlawn? Does it hurt anybody? Is it a can of worms we don't want to open up? Does it restrict the new world of having craft beer and so forth in many locations? Are we limiting ourselves in Moorhead? So the question really is, not a vote, but do you want alcohol looked at more thoroughly to open it up?
I would say yes. Especially since the 3-2 is no longer really valid and it is able to be changed. So if someone does ask for a permit, can they only drink 3-2 beer then if they are drinking something stronger? Is that a violation of the permit they get?
Well, it actually is.
It would
Yep.
be. Yeah, I would say yes to look into it at least further.
I would agree.
As well, me as well. Me too.
Okay, that's enough of a majority. So we'll keep, but all of these things will take some time, as you can see. The other thing that came up is adult athletic leagues. Should our vendors currently, our concessionaires, should our vendors not want to sell at like adult softball anymore, is there an opportunity to get a weekly consumption permit? So those are all the things that we're going to look at. Horseshoes comes up. Or do they need to come back and get one every time? And again, state law kind of limits a lot of this. So we just follow state law, but we'll be looking into seeing what can be done. The next one is dog park rules. Member Seljevold wanted the language changed because it was kids under 12 are not to be allowed in a dog park, and he would like that changed to discouraged from being allowed. So is that something you'd like us to look at?
Yeah, I'd see. Why not? Most of the time, parents are going to run their kids down to the park anyway, especially if they're close to that dog park. I have no issues with that.
Yes.
Are you good with that?
Yeah, I guess I'm just wondering, have there been problems with
No.
children there? I don't know. I don't know if, I guess I'm worried about the cost of having to change the signs.
Yeah. I will tell you on this one, it says I don't think we have the police out there enforcing all of it. Who knows who's 12? And I don't think it's a bad suggestion, but again, it's 2 readings, plus taking it, printing it in the newspaper, the whole ordinance, and then voting on it for public comment.
Would there be additional charge if you do all the ordinances at one time in the paper? Is it the same cost, or just is it per word or something, or how is that charged?
Per word.
Per word.
Yeah. And some of this one is, long.
And which paper do we use? Is it extra or is it?
It is the extra. Oh,
You said this one is long?
it is, because it gives all the rules of the dog parks and where you can have dogs and where you can't have dogs, and that they have to be leashed, and the signage is expensive on the gates, but just we have 2 dog parks. So, well, certainly, this one, again, is changing discouraged compared to not allowed.
What is the cost of signage and all that?
I don't know that one, but I know we got it at FRS Industries. I'm sure that's more than $100 sign.
Just wondering if with the dog park thing, if there's a legal reason that we would have it, kids under 12 not allowed, even though it's maybe not enforced. If something were to happen, does that change the city's responsibility?
Yeah.
Whereas discouraged means nothing.
Well, that's a good point also. The rules originally were written from the Dog Park Association and looked at by legal, so I don't know if that opens us up. That's your question, right? Does it open us up legally? We can continue to look at it and determine whether we'll bring it back to you guys after our research to decide that issue with that one. That sound okay?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, I promise I'm almost done. Okay, then we have ordinances on roller skates, roller blades, on bike paths and so forth, but that one has become antiquated because it does not allow e-bikes, electric scooters, electric skateboards and so forth. And when we bring this up, we've been asked a number of times if those are allowed on our paths. And we have told police that they've become more popular over the years. I don't know when this ordinance was put in. I could look, but I'm sure it was years and years ago. But I believe this one should be changed, but I want to make sure that you're okay with what I think we allow the e-bikes and the e-scooters on the bike paths.
Well, again, as you said, as the popularity of all that is growing, just look.
I'm sorry,
at the neighborhoods,
Sebastian, I
right?
can't hear you very well.
Just as long as you're looking at your neighborhoods the way you're seeing it already, the popularity of that
Yeah.
is so prevalent right now. I mean, look out your doors and you see
Yeah.
everyone is riding on those things. I have no issues with that.
Okay, anybody have issues? That one we are going to have to take. Okay, there's also sections under aquatics and pools that was missed. Years ago, the city licensed every pool in Moorhead. And then we switched that to the county licensing. They licensed the health department, they licensed restaurants, and they licensed pools. And they have a health inspector that goes around and does that. City used to provide that service, but the language was never changed to remove the city from those. The city needs to follow those rules, and it's good to have the ordinances in, but we need to remove the city from the punitive enforcement of those rules. And that was just because we've not looked at these for a long time. So that one we have to clean up. The other one is just city policies that wouldn't be printed, and that is the parks naming policy. And previously, it was a new policy during City Manager Volker's time, where for naming rights for anything, it had to be 50% of the project in these rules. And Councilmember Seljevold would like the city council to decide. Just open it up to say, at city council discretion. So that would be just an internal. As we look to do some of these bigger projects now, it becomes more important. So I don't think we want to get too skimpy, but it isn't our call. I mean, it would, we could bring an offer. So does anybody have a problem with switching that to city council discretion?
If right now, if it's 50%, is it automatically their naming rights, or it's still a decision by the council if they give 50%?
Still a decision by the council.
It's still a decision no matter what.
It's a recommendation, more or less, but it says, to accept naming rights of a facility, it must be 50% of the cost, or an addition. Or it also says, or $1 million. And I think some of that language was taken from MSUM when we were first writing. We looked at some other policies. And that was one that City Manager Volkers felt like, but I don't know if it's practical. We haven't had this yet, but we are being asked about Matson Field, with this new project going on. So it'd be 50% of the grandstand upgrade, not of the whole field, but still a lot.
So essentially, it's really not going to change too much from what it is currently if we just give it to the city as well, by the sounds of it. I mean, if someone comes up with 50% of the cost, it's still the city to decide whether they're going to get that name
Yes.
change. That's fine, and to have the city do it if it's going to ultimately come down to them anyways.
Yeah.
Thoughts?
No, I'm torn. I'm not sure. I mean, if it's ultimately their decision anyways, I can see why we would do that, but then, I don't know.
I think it was because we were trying to sell. And And in selling, people like to know. Excuse me.
So if you have more than 2 stakeholders on a project that are funding it and they're not going to reach that 50% threshold, I'm just trying to think of a reason where the issue would be. So right now it's they have to hit the 50% threshold and get permission. But if we have future projects that have more than, maybe we have a 40 and a 30 and a 30. See how I did that math that way? There could be, so that would allow then any of those individuals, but that 40%, if that were the group that would get the naming convention, they would be eligible for that based on city council recommendation with less than 50%. Okay.
Any comments?
I like the clarity that it gives of having the number. So if we had 2 businesses that gave 40%, how do you choose between the 2 of them? And if at least someone has that 50%, they are the majority giver.
Is 50 too high?
Guess that depends on the project right now. I like to see 50% for the swimming pool.
Yeah. And do we leave it and then it's up to council anyway? And then they decide whether they follow that procedure. It does help us when we sell. You know, when we go around, they say, well, you need to, you know, our policy right now is around 50%, but we could bring something to council.
Did Larry give is there a why council
No.
is eligible for the request for the change? No.
Nope, just that he wouldn't want to turn anybody down if they didn't quite meet that, or thought it was up to council anyway, just what the discussion is here. So why not leave it open-ended?
Would a recommendation be 50% or approval from the city council? That way, if it's 50%, you're still kind of, it's still a number, but does that help at all? I'm not sure if it does or not. Because right now it's a definite 50, but it could be 50 or it could be 40 if it works, you know, if the council sees fit. I don't know. I like a number there too for some reason. I don't know what the exact number should be, but I like a number there too.
More than 50% or council approval? Is that you could technically have 2 50-50 stakeholders.
Well, this is an internal policy, so this is much easier. So let me work with it, and it sounds like I kind of like Member Marquardt's suggestion of doing A and B. That number gives us something to shoot for.
Yeah. So,
Yeah, just a blanket statement of naming rights, and then A, 50% of the project, or 51%, or city council approval. You know, it could be A, B options instead of just one. I think that'd be good too.
So the last one is we cleaned up that private golf cart policy and got some additional explanation, and basically they only use that policy when it comes to outside events. So anybody can jump on a private cart anyway, if you guys remember that whole discussion that way. And I wasn't explaining it very clearly, so I wanted to clean that up. So other than that, those are the big ones that we are pulling out of the book. But, you know, staff would like a motion to get the rest of the book approved so that we can stop, kind of put the appendix in, and then we know what we're going to work on for the next meeting, if that is okay.
so essentially, we'd just be looking for a motion to approve the handbook with the exclusions.
Yes.
Wait a little bit, put a vote on, being Dave stepped out.
Yep, we can, yep, and we can come back to that shortly.
We just move on to B then? Recommendations, mowing frequencies for now?
Wait,
Or no?
let's move on.
Sure. It's all yours, Steve.
Thank you, sir. Item B is follow-up to the discussion we had at last month's workshop regarding some of the park maintenance procedures and actions we take in the field related to mowing and herbicide use. And the three things that we got, from our perspective, definitive direction on included the mowing of ditches and ponds every 3 weeks instead of every 2 weeks was one item to minimize the amount of mowing. Also, going one more width down the wet side of a levee instead of all the way down to the native planting or the trees below the levees. And the third thing was the trial of spot spraying or manual removal of weeds in playgrounds. Last year we established the standard or procedure of not spraying within 50 feet of pools or playgrounds. And we found that worked in some parks, but in many, it just got overgrown and it became too much to keep up on, to keep them to an acceptable level. So we're hoping we can go back to the past practice of spraying the entire park at least once a season to keep the thistle and weeds at bay. So we're looking for a recommendation to recommend approval of mowing ponds and ditches every 3 weeks, the one more width on the wet side of levees, and resuming herbicide application park-wide, not singling out or not doing within 50 feet of the playgrounds and pools.
Thoughts?
I'll make a motion, just to get it for discussion, to accept the recommendation presented to us.
Second?
Yeah, I'll second.
All right. Good. I think we should circle back to the handbook real quick.
Okay,
We'll go back to that. We'd like to see a motion to approve the handbook with the exclusions that we talked about. You stepped out.
Sure,
We didn't
that
vote
was
on
the, that was the
So-
number you needed, probably.
Yeah, not a problem. So looking for a motion to approve that.
Motion to approve the handbook changes with the exclusions.
I'll second.
Perfect. All right, thank you. All right, looks like we'll look at Matson Field.
I think we need to still vote on the herbicide one.
Oh, okay. All in favor of the herbicides, spraying where they need to be and mowing every 3 weeks and all those?
I had one
Everyone say aye.
question about that. Can we vote on the last one first?
Sure.
We had
the
a first and
handbook?
second, but yeah, for the
Okay.
handbook.
So let's vote on the handbook. All in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed? Perfect. All right, back to B with the herbicides.
And we were at questions. Yep.
So, Steve, since we're going back or planning on going back to spraying the parks, can you just remind me of what kind of communication we have when those sprays happen?
When the sprays happen, we put out signs, like they're 10 by 12 or 11 by 14 signs that get put out prior to the application, and they stay out all day. The spray dries in 2 to 3 hours, depending on the humidity and wind. There's typically no wind, but, yep.
Okay.
But we're putting signage out
Do you-
in advance of the spraying.
Do you typically spray most of the parks around the same time?
Typically, it's early morning.
I'm just wondering if there's, if we can do any additional communication just so people know, hey, we're going to be spraying the parks this week, FYI, in case there's people that are like, I don't want to bring my kid to the park that day or this week. Maybe that's, I'm just,
It's so weather dependent, you can't really set
Okay.
a day. That's the drawback or the difficulty in notifying.
okay. Okay, no other questions for me.
So if we would keep the park hours from 10 to 10, they could spray before 10, right? I won't go there.
Well, isn't that the truth? Other questions?
Just a comment, I do appreciate the city's work on testing it out and trying it out, with the least amount of chemical use as possible. And didn't quite work the way we wanted, but we appreciate you guys trying it out.
Also,
But
also, whatever we could do to help support finding mowers next year too, it'd be great. If we, however we can advertise or how we can help promote it as well, to find more people to do those jobs would be helpful for us too. If there's something we can do, let us know.
Mhm.
How old do you have to be to mow?
16, I believe.
I have a 15-year-old, but can't help you otherwise yet.
They can do the warming houses.
Yeah, yeah.
I think we're ready for a vote, Sebastian.
all right. All in favor? Say aye.
I
All opposed? All right, good. On to Masson Field now, sorry. Getting a step or two ahead of myself.
I can start this one out. Basically, I'm going to let Steve take most of it and look. There's some citizens groups that have been interested in doing the grandstand project at Matson Field. They came up with a very interesting concept, and although this is our fourth plan for getting seating at Matson Field, it's called the berming concept, and I believe we've talked about this at our workshop, where we would berm the outside and then put seating inside. We did receive the drawings back, and Steve, why don't you take the rest?
Sure. So like Holly said, we first started out with a conceptual drawing to see if this idea would even fit, and that's kind of where we're at. Before we continue on, we wanted to have the discussion with you to make sure that you're fine with proceeding with it. But a civil engineer looked at it, and we can fit a berm that'd be 8 feet tall within the existing confines of the southwest corner of Matson Field. So we've established it's doable. We've also established that it's going to be more cost effective than traditional steel bleachers. And we have potentially a project partner on the design of the grandstand itself. That'll be storage on the ground floor, concessions on the sub ground floor, kind of a basement. It's built into the side of the berm. And the main floor would be concessions, and the top floor would be press box and storage. So potential project partner on that. We've reached out to the Legion, Moorhead Youth Baseball, trying to get their buy-in and help with fundraising on the project as well. Just, I guess we're looking for your approval to continue on with the actual design and further the project along.
And if I remember reading correctly, we have enough dirt available to us right now to be able to do this without having to wait for the 11th Street underpass, correct?
Correct. There is dirt on 15th Avenue North on the west side of Centennial Field that came from the other underpass. That's available to us.
No delay in waiting for that to come through. How soon could this start, I guess?
Could be as soon as next fall, at the end of next season.
We thought it would take a lot more dirt than what was there, but they took the basically contaminated dirt off that hill, and there's enough good dirt there yet. And we needed that dirt pile moved anyway. That's kind of where we're projecting the 2 new fields.
just have a question for design. I know working concessions for Legion and for spring ball, most people who are working are parents in the concession stand. If that's behind the background, there'd be no way now to access to even to see the game during that. Is there a way to keep concessions kind of the way it is now, where we can at least see the game going on while we're working concessions, or was that just not possible?
Well, in your packet, I believe in your packet, there should be a copy of, yeah, there it is. It's oriented that you'd be looking out right into the field.
It's not on the bottom behind the grandstand here, is that, or?
It's in a lower left corner. That's where the concessions would be.
So you could see the game from where you're at. I guess I'm not seeing it from this photo, but
You'd be looking to the northeast.
Yep. Yep, and we would show you the design
Okay.
of the building. We were able to meet with a partner who certainly knows that that's one of the criteria.
okay. Yeah, I think it's a great idea. So
I think the restrooms are under. I don't know where the restrooms are next to concessions, right? Yeah. That hasn't been determined yet.
I see.
One thing to add on this topic is that I did have a meeting with the school district today. Their plans, because they play in April and May, we certainly understand that. So their priority is turf. And turf for them is essential for that early start so they can guarantee games. So in regards to this, they have no problem with the berming. They say they play at a lot of stadiums like this that are very cool and quaint, and so there's no problems there, but they continue to seek funding for turf at their location. So in the future, this may not be the home for the high school, but it certainly will be home for the amateurs, it'll be home for the Legion, and for all kinds of summer ball. So the other thing that was mentioned at that time too is, as you've been in the workshop, we've talked a lot about what are the field needs for Moorhead. And so when we visited today, they talked about their Horizon field already being a field that is a full-size field, which is the #1 priority for Moorhead Youth Baseball, and that they had field doctors come in this last year. And they continue to look at other improvements that would make that one and those 2 softball diamonds better up at the Horizon complex. So they continue to look at that, but of course they continue to look for community partners also that would help them make those diamonds better. And to me, if we've already got a skeleton there, it seems like that's the way to go on a full-size field instead of trying to make a full-size field out of that west side of Centennial. So more discussion, probably more workshops, we'll talk more, but there was good news to me, and this Diamond Doctor company that they had come in, I believe that's something I was just visiting with Steve about. I think we need to look at something like that to bring our Centennial fields back up to a level, cut them back, they kind of reshape them, rework them, and so I think we're going to look at that possibility also. So basically, we'd look for a motion to approve the berming. It's going away from that metal grandstand, that $1 million project, and doing something a little different here. So it's a big change.
And I think you led with, this is supported by the groups that you visited with, correct?
Correct, yes. The users have all had an opportunity to weigh in.
I'll make a motion to approve the berming at Matson Field.
I'll second.
Thank you. Good. All right. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Hi.
All opposed? Okay. Letter D, recommendation for preferred master plan for reimagined Romkey.
Well, you didn't get 2 plans, so I guess this is the preferred master plan. I put it in front of you guys. First, I wanted to talk for 1 minute about the process to make sure that you understand kind of what the grant says and what we needed to do in regards to seeking community input. So the grant itself is for high-density, low-income neighborhoods, and that's an important thing. And so the community engagement on that, they really would like it to be from that neighborhood specifically. We, of course, did community-wide because the pool is there and so forth, but we did send postcards to the entire neighborhood within a half-mile radius of Romkey Park, gave them a QR code to take the survey, We provided existing condition boards. We had an open house, had a really good turnout at the open house, had pop-up events. We had kids at the after-school program. We invited parents to come over and say what amenities do they think their kids would use and what amenities do they think they wouldn't use. And things like sand volleyball were not rated high. I thought that might be something that they would like, but it isn't. So the community input is great. The bocce ball court, that isn't something that they play over there. But what you see in front of you are the highest amount of comments. And ice skating rinks was one of them, but they really like these new sledding hills that they've been putting into the parks. It gives something to do in the winter if you don't have a pair of skates, and you can go out and do some sledding. And then they can go in and warm up. But this particular plan in front of you had a staff committee, but was truly led by that public engagement piece that we had ongoing. Our pop-up events were also at Pangea, Cultivate Your Cultures. We had the boards and comments at the voting sites for that neighborhood and so forth. And we got a lot of media, a lot of social media. We sent out notices and so forth. I don't have the exact number of where it ended up for public comments, but I know we had over 250 that did comment on what they would like to see kind of outside their front door. This, of course, just so that you're aware, coincides with plans. As you know, MSUM is kind of looking at redoing some of their campus. So we tried to be receptive of that into that 8th Avenue, if that should become more of an entry into their campus, but also down where it says Cass Clay Community Land Trust. You have a sheet in front of you that is the next open house, and that is that old, if anybody remembers Central Cultural, that's that site. That was a large building that was previously a church that the migrant community had, and it was a performance stage. It was a lot of different things for a lot of different people, but it just came under poor conditions and was not well funded any longer. So it had to be raised, and now the land is owned by this community land trust. So they're looking at what they can do in that neighborhood, taking comments on, should we put a daycare on the main floor? Should we put a little grocery store on the main floor? Should we put a little library or community room, or what do you want? And so they have boards like this. When we did our event, they came in conjunction with us to ask what what neighborhoods would like to have. It was a great synergy between the two projects, but they continued to do their research. In this sort of a project, they would have a community-based events on the first floor of this building, but they would be to buy homes. I'm not quite sure of the terminology that you would use, but they're apartments that you would, or condos above, that are low income, that people can get that jump start. They can get an opportunity to have some skin in the game so they can later afford housing, and they can sell it back at a low income to a low-income group that just needs that extra start to save some money for that down payment. So this is exciting work happening over in this area. If Val were here, Reimagine Romkey has been one of her hot ticket items, knowing that we need something more than just the pool over here. So this is kind of what we have. The only thing not marked, I haven't had a lot of time to look at it, but onto the pool building, you'll see what's an overhang. It's chairs and seating so that moms can watch their kids on the playground. And so that overhang area isn't marked, but everything else I think is self-explanatory. And that nature play and play berm, that is down on the other side of the park in recognition that we believe there will be a lot of kids in that new apartment complex that they're talking about, or the new condos. So trying to, and you can see the paths all the way through. I'm excited about the design. I think it looks great. It came with a lot of back and forth, which is why you didn't get it very soon. There's going to be another opportunity for comment. The City Council is going to see this at a workshop on December 5th or 6th, whatever day that is. So you can comment after and we can include your comments. But it really is, kind of picking that preferred plan to include with the grant.
I just have two questions. This, first of all, looks amazing. Are all of the trees going to be part of the food forest? Just curious.
I don't believe so.
Okay. All right. I was just curious on that. And then the rec center and the pool building, the rec center will be an addition to what we currently offer there, correct? So,
Nope.
no, we currently have a rec center at the pool.
No, it will be a replacement of that neighborhood rec center that we have there.
Got it. Okay.
So
Thank you.
the idea is it would be there year-round, but it would also suffice as if you wanted to have a birthday party, a swimming party, or a community room right connected to the pool. And then it can be the after-school program. So it would be used year-round, that building. Our existing building, although we've recently done some remodeling, there are some outside issues with it. They were put in the 70s, and not that age matters, but it isn't big enough. We have to limit, we limit our after-school program to 20. Because of need, we went to 27, but we really have to have kids outside. It's just overcrowded at even 25. At 20, it's crowded. If you've ever been in there, there's room for like two and a half tables of kids. So.
Yeah, I agree. I really like the initial concept. I think it'd be nice. I really do. I think that'd be fantastic.
I just had a question. So on the memorandum of it, the second paragraph says the maximum grant request is 10 million, in parentheses $20 million total project or project overall.
Yeah.
But then later on it says the anticipation is $10 million project, but has to be one-on-one match with the city of $5 million. So what's the exact cost of the?
We really felt like, with visiting with the finance director and so forth, that a $10 million project was as much as what we were willing to put out there. So the maximum amount we could be applying for is that 20, but we'd have to come up with 10 million.
Oh, I see. So this project right here would be $10 million with $5 million of the grant, you might say.
Correct.
And then $5 million from this, however
Right.
we'd get it. Okay.
Correct. A really important thing about this plan and this project is that unless we get the grant, it isn't funded. So we've been working with this group to do a master plan. So we will know in September if our grant gets forwarded on to the Department of Interior and so forth, but at least we could pick away and we have a vision. We, of course, really hope that we can get this pool and this grant, but we don't want to get this so expensive that we aren't going to get anything. And this pool is in need of replacement, in the next 5 to 10 years. We've put that Band-Aid on, so we've got some time. But, so this is really a master planning effort and designed to submit for the grant. It isn't saying we're getting this.
I think the plan looks good. Personally, I think it'd be nice to have some indoor space where kids can use during the winter time when it's not nice. So like an enclosed basketball court there, or enclosed, like we've been looking for betting cages or those things. So some kind of enclosed facility big enough to do inside sports. And that's majority of the weather we have is indoors a lot of times. So I think instead of having like 2 basketball courts that are outside, if we could somehow get a facility, big enough for indoor activities, would be really beneficial to that area as well.
I don't disagree with your comment. The one thing that this grant does not do, it's read by the DNR, it does not pay for buildings.
Okay.
So our $5 million match has to kind of go for that one. And they're all very grant specific, but I really like your idea and say that we don't get the grant. It's something to consider.
Well, that makes sense, but yeah, looks good then.
Yeah, I think this plan looks really great, and I think that done a really good job of combining, exciting things for kids and for people of all ages, and those sustainability aspects. So yeah, it's exciting. Thank you for all your work.
Thank you.
So I guess we'll be looking for a motion to approve this preliminary preferred plan.
Yep, with the opportunity for still have comment, but are you guys, if you're okay with us submitting this for the grant, that'd be great to get a motion.
I'll make a motion for the city council on the preferred master plan for Rumpke Park.
I'll second.
All in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed? Okay, great. Information and updates. Holly, I'm assuming that is up to you.
Does anybody have any questions? Actually, Councilmember Caroon probably knows as much about the Library Community Center as anybody. I put some materials in on next steps, but it's just now taking it to the state. And do you want to comment on that?
Yeah, it's an exciting time for Moorhead now that we have the votes and we have folks largely said yes to the Library and Community Center. So now, we need to start the planning process, and a lot of that will be done by the city. We'll be looking at people to design what this will really look like. The drawings that we had for the campaign were obviously a vision of kind of what we were hoping for, something like that. But of course, with the budget that we have, now will be exactly what we can really build with what we've got. And then also looking for some community partners too that can maybe donate some funds for specific parts of this project.
Any thoughts, questions? American Rescue Act?
If I could make comment on the next one, I just want to take a minute to publicly thank the City Council. They did move through for approval $1.15 million to be used for the parks. So the money is there. As I said, this Diamond Doctor, we can go ahead and start moving on some of these projects. It will not be spent quickly or easily and not without you guys knowing what we're doing, but for the first time in many, many years, there's some money there to do something. So I couldn't be more thankful and more excited that we finally can make a difference for the kids in Moorhead and move forward. So thanks to the council and for seeing the vision to use some of this money for the park department. So the only other thing I have is the bike ped plan. That's a document that I know council member or city or member Janelle Brandon used to be more concerned about the ped plan, but the new ped plan is in the packet, or there's a link there. Other than that, I really don't have any, just an update on the grants we've gotten, the grants we haven't gotten. Some of them are disappointing. We're putting a lot of work into grant writing these days, and it takes time. But we continue to forge forward.
Guess if that's it, we'll just look to adjourn. All right. I guess looking for a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn?
I'll second.
Perfect. Motion made by Lindsay, seconded by Dave. All right, and that would be it. Need to vote on that? Or no? All right,
I
I
don't think
guess
so.
we're good. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.